The baby shower was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. Pink balloons floating in the sunlight, guests laughing, and my pregnant wife, Emily, glowing with joy as she held her belly. But in the middle of that soft, beautiful moment, everything shattered. A scream cut through the backyard, followed by a gunshot that froze the world. Emily's body jerked back, her hands flying to her stomach as blood spilled onto her blue dress. And standing at the gate, gripping a pistol with shaking hands, was Karen, our HOA president, her eyes full of hatred, shouting something about violating community rules. I remember dropping the cake plate, my vision narrowing, the old instincts from my Army sniper days snapping awake. Like a switch I never wanted to flip again, Emily collapsed. Guests fled. And I saw red, because Karen had no idea who she had just attacked. Before I take you deeper into the story, I need to ask you something important. Which city are you watching from? Go ahead and comment your city below. It helps me connect with you all so much more. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button before we start so you never miss another emotional, suspenseful story like this one. All right, let's begin. When Emily hit the ground, the world didn't just slow, it broke apart. Moments earlier, our backyard was filled with balloons, laughter, tiny baby gifts, and the warm excitement of friends celebrating our daughter's upcoming arrival. But the instant that gunshot tore through the air, everything shifted. Guests screamed and dropped behind tables. Plates shattered. People ran in every direction, struggling to understand how a peaceful baby shower had turned into a nightmare. And in the middle of all that chaos was Emily, my pregnant wife, gasping for air, her hands clutching her belly as blood soaked through her baby blue dress. Her eyes were wide with fear, silently begging me to help her. Standing at the gate was Karen, the HOA president, gripping a pistol like she owned the whole world. She was yelling something about community rules and unauthorized decorations, her face twisted with anger, completely disconnected from reality. She had no idea who she had just attacked. Before this quiet suburban life, before neighbors and lawns and HOA meetings, I spent years as a United States Army sniper, trained to stay calm under fire, to think when others panicked, to react with precision when danger struck. I buried that part of myself when I left the military. But as Emily bled in my arms, something inside me reawakened. Karen had crossed a line she would never come back from. The moment the gunshot echoed across the backyard, everything froze. Yet everything happened at once. It felt like the world's atmosphere shifted, heavy and distorted, like time itself was trying to process what Karen had just done. I remember the exact second Emily's knees buckled beneath her, her fingers twitching toward her stomach as if she could physically hold our unborn daughter safe inside her. Her baby blue dress darkened rapidly as blood seeped through the fabric, turning the soft color into a horrifying shade that made my heart stop. For a moment, all sound vanished. The laughter, the music, the cheerful chatter of a baby shower, it was all replaced by a suffocating silence, broken only by Emily's shaky breath and the faint clatter of a gift bag hitting the ground. I lunged toward her, my hands shaking as I caught her before she could fall fully to the grass. But behind us, chaos finally erupted. Guests screamed, chairs crashed over, balloons ripped free and floated upward in the frantic storm of movement. Someone yelled to call 911. Someone else grabbed their child. Another person ducked behind the dessert table as if more bullets would follow any second. But all of that seemed like background noise compared to the sight that burned itself into my brain. Karen, standing rigid at the edge of the yard, her arms still extended, her pistol gripped like she'd spent her entire life waiting for this moment. Her face wasn't one of panic or guilt. It was twisted with arrogance, with the confidence of someone who believed her authority was godlike. The HOA president, a woman who complained about garden gnomes, mailbox sizes, driveway chalk drawings, and now apparently unauthorized baby shower decorations, had shot my pregnant wife. "I warned you," she shrieked, her voice trembling with an unhinged rage that sent chills through my spine. "You were told the community rules. These balloons violate the HOA's color scheme. I told you to remove them. This is what happens when people ignore procedures. Her voice cracked, and for a moment she looked like she believed this was a perfectly rational explanation for attempted murder. I felt Emily gripping my arm weakly, her fingers cold, her breathing shallow. Her eyes met mine, full of terror and a silent plea I've only seen once before, back when I was deployed, holding a wounded soldier who didn't know if he'd survive the helicopter ride. "Stay with me, Em," I whispered, my voice raw. "I've got you. I've got you, baby. Don't you dare close your eyes." But she winced in pain, and her hands trembled as she tried to touch her stomach again. I pressed my palm gently over her wound, applying pressure even as my mind spun, calculating every possible outcome. My sniper training kicked in, not the violent part, but the part that taught me to stabilize, prioritize, and think with ice instead of panic. But the second part, the dangerous part, was also awakening. The part that measured angles, distances, escape routes, and threats. The part of me I had sworn I would never use again outside the battlefield. But Karen had forced that part back to life. She stood still, breathing hard, pointing the gun at the ground now, but still refusing to lower it fully. Guests kept screaming at her, but she snapped back at them about HOA rights and proper community conduct like she was the victim here. Some neighbors tried to approach her, but she swung the gun upward again, and they froze instantly. I shifted my body to shield Emily from her line of sight, my heart pounding as I listened for sirens. None yet, but they would come. I needed them to come fast. "You don't belong in this neighborhood," Karen shouted, her voice shaking with delusional conviction. "Ever since you moved in, things have gone downhill. Loud cars, late-night lights, oversized decorations. This is a peaceful place. I had to maintain order." My jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. She wasn't just unhinged, she believed she was justified. That made her even more dangerous. She might shoot again. My instinct scanned everything. Her stance, her grip, her emotional state, the twitch in her hand, the distance between us, 27 feet, the angle of the patio table I could flip for cover, the slow retreat of neighbors moving toward the fence, the backyard layout I'd mapped unconsciously the first day we moved in. Emily coughed, her breathing worsening. Blood warmed my hands as it soaked through my fingers. My wife, my daughter, they were fading. I had seconds, not minutes. I looked around desperately. No one else was going to stop Karen. No one else was trained to. And Karen raised the gun again, this time pointing it directly toward us. Toward Emily. Toward my unborn child. Her voice trembled as she screamed, "You ruined this community. You ruined my authority. I warned you, no outside colors allowed." That was it. Something inside me snapped so cleanly it was like a wire cutting in my chest. I slowly lifted my head, my eyes locking with hers. Everything around me blurred. The screaming, the running, the chaos. All I could see was Karen. All I could feel was Emily's weakening pulse under my hand. All I could think was one sentence. "If she tries to fire again, I end this." My voice came out low, calm, dangerous, exactly the way it did during missions. "Karen," I said, "put the gun down. Right now." She blinked at me, surprised by the tone. She could feel something had changed, something she couldn't control. But before she could respond, before she could make another fatal choice, I gently laid Emily on her side, whispered to her that I loved her, and rose slowly to my feet. The army sniper she had awakened was now fully alive, and Karen had no idea what was about to happen next. Sirens finally pierced the air, faint at first, then growing louder, closer, until the flashing red lights bounced off the windows of surrounding houses. But even as help arrived, everything felt painfully slow. I knelt beside Emily, my hands still pressed against her wound, whispering to her over and over that she was going to be okay, that our daughter was going to be okay, that she just needed to hold on a little longer. Her breathing was shallow, shaky, her eyelids fluttering as she fought to stay conscious. "Stay with me. Em," I begged, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Our baby needs you. I need you." The gate burst open, As two paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, their expressions shifting instantly from calm professionalism to alarm when they saw the amount of blood. Gunshot wound to the abdomen. She's pregnant, one of them said urgently to his partner. They worked swiftly, rolling Emily onto her side, checking her pulse, securing her oxygen mask, and placing pressure pads on her stomach as they lifted her onto the stretcher. I moved with them, refusing to let go of her hand even for a second. Emily squeezed my fingers weakly, and that tiny bit of strength kept me from collapsing. As the medics wheeled her toward the ambulance, Karen suddenly shouted from across the yard, her voice shrill. "Stop! I'm the HOA president, and this whole thing is being blown out of proportion. He's exaggerating. She wasn't supposed to be standing there." The paramedics ignored her completely, but I wasn't about to. I spun toward her, ready to end this with words, or more, when the police finally arrived behind the ambulance. Officers rushed in, weapons drawn, yelling commands, forcing Karen to drop the pistol. She hesitated for one horrifying moment, long enough to make every officer tense, then finally let it fall to the ground. They handcuffed her immediately, but instead of remorse, Karen lifted her chin with confidence. "I was defending the neighborhood," she proclaimed loud enough for everyone to hear. "They violated the HOA rules. This whole event was unauthorized. None of these decorations were approved." The officers exchanged disturbed glances. One of them asked her, "Ma'am, are you admitting you shot a pregnant woman over decorations?" Karen scoffed. "Don't twist my words. I didn't shoot her intentionally. The gun went off because she pointed at me, lunged at me. He's ex-military, dangerous, aggressive. Ask the neighbors. They've been concerned about him for months." The audacity nearly knocked the breath out of me. She was lying without flinching, fabricating a story that shifted blame onto me. A few neighbors, terrified and confused, stayed silent, even the ones who had seen the entire attack. Others were too shocked to speak. But one woman finally stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Officer, that's not true." Karen pulled the gun first. She threatened everyone. She said the balloons violated the HOA rules. Karen spun on her with wild eyes. "You're lying. You've always been jealous of my position on the board." Another neighbor backed her up. "No, Karen, we saw it. You aimed the gun. No one touched you." Karen's confidence cracked for the first time, her face twisting as she realized her narrative wasn't sticking. I only meant to scare them. I didn't mean to, but I didn't wait to hear the rest. I was already climbing into the ambulance with Emily. The paramedic slammed the doors shut, and as the vehicle lurched forward, I kept my eyes locked on hers. She was conscious, but fading. "Sir, we need you to stay calm," the medic said as he adjusted for lines and checked her vitals. "Her blood pressure is dropping. We're calling ahead to prep an emergency operating room." "How far along is she?" 7 months, I replied, my voice cracking. "We're having a girl." The medic nodded grimly. "We'll do everything we can for both of them." The ride to the hospital felt like it lasted a lifetime, even though it couldn't have been more than 8 minutes. Every bump, every turn, every red light made me fear the worst. Emily's breaths became weaker, her eyelids heavy. "Don't let me lose her," she whispered faintly. "Don't let anything happen to our baby. Nothing is going to happen," I whispered fiercely, brushing my thumb across her knuckles. "You're going to hold her. You're going to hear her cry. You're going to be okay." Her lips trembled into the smallest, most fragile smile, and then her head tilted slightly as she went unconscious. "Emily!" I shouted, my heart dropping. The paramedic immediately worked faster. "She's still with us," he said quickly. "We're almost there." The ambulance screeched to a halt outside the emergency entrance. Doctors and nurses stormed out, pulling the stretcher inside while shouting medical terms over each other. They rushed her straight toward the operating room. I tried to follow, but a nurse stopped me with both hands on my chest. "Sir, you can't go in there. Please wait in the family room." "That's my wife," I yelled, "and my child." "I understand," she said gently but firmly, "but you have to let us work." I staggered back as the doors slammed shut, leaving me standing alone in a white hallway buzzing with fluorescent lights. My hands were still stained with Emily's blood. My shirt, too. My arms trembled without control. I sank into a chair, leaning forward, gripping my head, trying to breathe. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. I didn't know. Each second felt like a year. A police officer approached. "Sir, can we ask you a few questions?" he said carefully. I slowly lifted my head, my jaw tight. "Is she still alive?" He hesitated. "The doctors are doing everything they can." My blood boiled. "Ask your questions." The officer sat beside me. "Karen is claiming the gun discharged accidentally during an argument. She says you threatened her." A bitter laugh escaped my throat. "So, she's lying to save herself." "Yes," he admitted quietly. "But multiple witnesses say otherwise. And we found HOA violation notices on your property dated weeks back. She had been documenting issues obsessively." "She targeted us," I said. "She targeted my family." The officer nodded. "She's being charged with attempted murder." But, what?" He looked toward the operating room doors. "Her lawyer is already on the way." Rage ignited in me like a fuse on dynamite. Karen wasn't just dangerous, she was delusional, manipulative, and connected. She had no remorse. She believed she was right. She believed she deserved a win. And if she was already building a defense, then this wasn't over. Not even close. I leaned back, staring at the glowing red operating sign above the doors, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I swore to myself right then and there that no matter what it took, Karen would never hurt my family again. The hospital waiting room felt colder the longer I sat there, like every minute drained another piece of warmth from the building. People walked past, doctors, nurses, techs, but none of them stopped long enough to give me what I needed. News. Any news. Good or bad. Just something. My leg bounced uncontrollably, my blood-stained hands clasped together, as if praying for time to rewind. But while I waited, the world outside was already exploding. Within an hour, the shooting had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Someone had posted it on Facebook. Someone else put it on the Nextdoor app. And by the time the police began interviewing residents, half the community was standing at the sidewalks arguing, crying, or recording videos on their phones. The HOA president shooting a pregnant woman at her own baby shower? It wasn't something people ignored. And Karen, handcuffed, escorted into a police SUV, still had enough venom to twist the truth before the crowd. "This is a misunderstanding," she screamed, her voice breaking. "He threatened me. He lunged at me. He's military trained, dangerous." A few people gasped, not because they believed her, but because they realized how far she was willing to go. One neighbor, Mr. Hall, stepped forward. "Karen, we saw you point the gun," he snapped. "You were screaming about balloon colors." Karen whipped toward him, eyes wild. "You hate me because I fined you for leaving your trash cans out. Because you gave me a violation at 6 a.m., he shot back. More neighbors joined him, some shouting, some crying, some saying they'd always known Karen was unhinged but were afraid to speak up. Others said they felt guilty for staying silent while she bullied half the community. But not everyone was on my side. A small group, people Karen had manipulated for years, began whispering among themselves, questioning what really happened. "Maybe he provoked her," one man said. "He's ex-military, right? Maybe he snapped." Or maybe they planned this to sue the HOA, another murmured. People do crazy things for money. Lies, rumors, assumptions. They spread like poison. And Karen did everything she could to feed that poison. From the police car window, she shouted, "I have rights. This whole thing is being exaggerated. He's violent. Ask his neighbors about the arguments he's had. Ask about the noise." But they had asked, and those so-called arguments were just me calmly telling her we weren't removing our baby shower banner 2 weeks early. The noise complaints she filed were from the night I assembled the crib at 7 p.m. But truth rarely travels as fast as gossip. Back at the hospital, my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails, news alerts. Someone had leaked the story to a local reporter, and within minutes, the headlines hit the internet. HOA president shoots pregnant woman over decorations. Baby shower horror in suburban community. Former Army sniper's wife in critical condition after HOA dispute turns violent. My blood boiled reading every word, not because the headlines were wrong, but because Emily wasn't a headline. She was a person, a wife, a soon-to-be mother, my whole world, and she was fighting for her life. A nurse finally approached me. "Sir, you need to come with me," she said. Her face was unreadable. My heart lurched. "Is she?" "No," she said quickly. "But the doctors want to update you in person." I followed her down the hallway, past rooms filled with beeping monitors and murmuring families, until we reached a consultation room. 2 doctors stood inside, one in scrubs, one in a lab coat. Both serious, both tired. "Mr. Hayes," the surgeon began gently, "your wife lost a dangerous amount of blood. We're stabilizing her, but she is in very critical condition." My chest tightened. "And the baby?" They exchanged a look that made my knees weaken. "We're monitoring the fetal heartbeat," the other doctor said. "It's faint, but present. We're doing everything we can." Faint, present. The 2 words slammed into me like punches. I nodded slowly, forcing air into my lungs. "Can I see her?" "Soon," the surgeon promised. "But there's something else you need to know." My stomach dropped. "What?" The bullet didn't match the caliber Karen claimed she used. My mind snapped into focus. "What does that mean?" "Karen told police she was carrying a small .22 pistol," he continued. "But the wound and the fragments we removed aren't from a .22. They're from a .38 or possibly a 9mm, which means," his voice trailed off, letting the implication hit me. "Karen lied. She lied about the gun, the caliber, the weapon, maybe even the motive. Police need her real weapon," the doctor finished, "to match ballistics, to prove intent." My hands curled into fists. Karen wasn't just lying to save herself. She was hiding something bigger, something planned, something calculated. I stormed out of the consultation room just as 2 detectives approached, one flipping through a notepad. "Mr. Hayes," the older detective said, "we have updates." "So do I?" I snapped. Karen lied about the gun she used. The detectives exchanged a look. "We suspected that," the younger one admitted. "But this confirms it. The pistol she surrendered is registered and clean, but it hasn't been fired recently." Meaning it wasn't the weapon used. Shock twisted into fury inside me. "She staged a fake gun to mislead the investigation?" "Looks like it," the detective replied. "We found 2 locked cases in her house. One is empty. The other contains ammunition inconsistent with the gun she turned over." My breath caught. "So, where's the real weapon?" "We don't know yet." The detective's jaw tightened. "But we do know this. Karen didn't just lose her temper today. She prepared. She planned. And she may have intended something even worse." I stared at him, rage and fear colliding in my chest like wildfire in a storm. "My wife is fighting for her life," I said, voice shaking. "My daughter is fighting for her life. And Karen is playing games." "Not for long," the detective said firmly. "We're issuing a warrant to search her car, her storage unit, and her office at the HOA headquarters." "HOA headquarters?" I repeated. "Why would she keep a gun there?" The detective looked at me with a grim expression. "Because Karen wasn't just obsessed with power." He closed his notebook. "She was obsessed with you." And that was the moment I realized the shooting wasn't about balloons. It wasn't about decorations. It wasn't even about the HOA. It was personal. And the truth behind that obsession was going to destroy everyone's understanding of what really happened. The detectives didn't waste time. Within an hour of discovering Karen had lied about the weapon, they secured warrants and headed straight for the HOA office, an ugly beige building she treated like the Pentagon. I followed them, not inside, but from the parking lot, pacing the asphalt like a caged animal. My phone buzzed every few minutes with hospital updates, all of them the same. "She's still critical. No change yet." Every buzz made my heart jolt. Every non-update made the waiting worse. I stood outside the office with my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white, watching officers go in and out carrying boxes, files, computers, evidence of something bigger than a neighborhood dispute. The younger detective, Mason, stepped outside first, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You're not going to believe this," he muttered. "Try me," I said. He opened the first box, revealing dozens, no, hundreds, of printed papers. Violation notices, letters, reports, photos. She kept files on every neighbor, Mason said. Every parked car, every lawn, every decoration, every noise complaint. "That's what HOAs do," I said bitterly. "Not like this," Mason replied, pulling out a thick folder with my name tabbed on the front. Hayes James. My stomach tightened. "Open it," I said. He flipped it open and my blood ran cold. Inside were photos of me leaving the house, jogging, mowing the lawn, carrying groceries, helping Emily into the car. All taken secretly. She watched us. I whispered. Mason nodded grimly. "For months." He pulled out another sheet, copies of emails she wrote to the HOA board accusing me of being unstable, aggressive, and military-brained. Lies, fabrications, manipulations. She was building a case against you. Mason continued. A fake one. For what? I asked, my voice trembling with disgust. To get you removed from the community? Mason shook his head. No, this goes deeper. He handed me a handwritten note found in her desk. If he steps out of line again, I'll handle it myself. The community deserves discipline. My breath caught. She planned this, I whispered. She planned it before the baby shower. Mason swallowed. There's more. He motioned to another officer who walked over holding a small black USB drive sealed in an evidence bag. We found this in a locked drawer. They plugged it into a laptop set up on the hood of a patrol car. A folder popped up instantly, labeled only with a date. Yesterday's date. Mason clicked it open. Inside were audio recordings, dozens of them. Karen's voice filled the speakers. I will not let outsiders ruin this neighborhood. He thinks being former military gives him authority. People like him don't follow rules. Someone has to set boundaries. But then, one recording made the hair on my arm stand up. If Emily thinks she can transform this place with her parties, decorations, and loud visitors, she's mistaken. I'll shut it all down. Permanently. Mason paused the audio. The officers all exchanged looks. She didn't just want you gone, Detective Mason said, quietly. She wanted your family erased. A cold, sharp focus settled over me, an old, dangerous feeling I hadn't felt since the desert, since the missions no one back home ever asked about. The Army sniper inside me, the part trained to analyze threats, to neutralize danger, to protect at all costs, stepped out of the shadows again. Detective, I said, my voice steady control, but ice cold. Go on. Mason nodded toward the building. We found something else in the back office. They led me inside. The air smelled like stale dust and printer ink, and the walls were covered with framed pictures of Karen at HOA meetings, ribbon cuttings, community events where she stood at the center like a self-appointed queen. But tucked away behind a metal cabinet was a smaller room, almost like a storage closet, only it wasn't storage. It was a shrine. To me. Photos of my military service, printed from my old Facebook posts, pictures of me in uniform, articles about snipers, notes scribbled in pen, highly trained, unpredictable, dangerous but disciplined. Must control him. I stared in stunned silence. She studied you, Mason said. She studied your background, your training, every detail she could find. Why? My voice cracked between rage and disbelief. Why would she be obsessed with me? Mason sighed. Because she feared you, and she wanted power over someone she feared. Power? I muttered. She shot my wife, and she didn't expect her to survive. Mason added quietly. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a heated moment. It was premeditated. My fists curled, my jaw locked, my pulse hammered. Karen had built a narrative, a plan, and a false weapon surrender to craft a story where she came out innocent and I came out guilty, or at least unstable enough to blame. We aren't done searching yet, Mason said. We still have her car and her storage unit. As the officers hauled more boxes from the building, my phone buzzed. My stomach flipped. A text from the hospital. Critical. Come immediately. My blood turned to ice. I sprinted to my car without a word. The drive blurred into a smear of lights, horns, and shaking hands gripping the steering wheel. When I burst into the hospital, a nurse rushed over. Sir, follow me, she said urgently. Your wife, something happened. I ran down the hallway behind her. The beeping of machines was louder, panicked, chaotic. When she pushed open the room door, the sight hit me like a bullet to the chest. Emily was surrounded by doctors. Her monitors were screaming. Nurses were calling out numbers. One doctor was performing compressions. No, I whispered, my entire body trembling. No, Emily. A doctor turned, his face grave. Mr. Hayes, we're fighting to stabilize her, he said breathlessly. Her heart rate dropped fast. The baby's under distress, too. My vision blurred. The room spun. A sound I hadn't heard since combat ripped out of my chest, a sound born from terror, rage, and the threat of losing everything. I reached for Emily's hand. It was cold, too cold. I bent over her, my tears hitting the sheets. Fight, I whispered fiercely. For me, for our daughter. Fight, Emily. Please. Machines beeped faster. Doctors moved quicker. Clear, someone shouted. Her body jolted. Again. Another jolt. Then, something changed. A dip in the monitor. A long, terrible pause. And then, a faint, fragile, trembling heartbeat. Hers. And our baby's. The doctor exhaled shakily. She's not out of danger, he warned. Not even close. But she's still with us. I turned my head toward the hallway. Just as Detective Mason appeared at the door, his expression was white as paper. We found a real gun, he said weakly, and something else. I wiped my eyes. What? Mason swallowed. It had your fingerprints on it. The room fell silent. My pulse stopped. My world tilted. Karen hadn't just planned to kill my family. She had planned to frame me for pulling the trigger. For a moment, the world didn't just stop, it collapsed inward like a dying star. Detective Mason's words echoed in my skull. The gun has your fingerprints on it. I stared at him, breath frozen, mind racing, heart pounding so violently it shook my ribs. That's impossible, I whispered, shaking my head. I never touched her weapon. I didn't even know she had another one. Mason looked stricken, as if he wished he didn't have to be the one to say the next part. We found the weapon in her storage unit, wrapped in a cloth. The fingerprints are fresh, from the last 24 hours. My chest tightened. You're saying I handled it yesterday? According to the prints, yes. Mason swallowed. But I know that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because it's not true, I snapped, unable to keep the anger from spilling out. Emily's weak heartbeat beeped softly behind me, reminding me with every second that I didn't have time for this nightmare. But somehow, the nightmare kept expanding. Mason opened a small evidence bag containing something metallic. A key. We found this taped beneath your porch steps, he said. The key to Karen's storage unit. My heart sank. She planted evidence. She planted the key. She planted the gun. She crafted a perfect story. Former Army sniper snaps under stress, shoots his pregnant wife, tries to blame the HOA president, and hides the weapon in her storage unit. Suddenly, everything clicked with terrifying clarity. Karen wasn't just obsessed. She was methodical, calculated. She had built this trap long before the baby shower. But why? Why me? Why Emily? Why now? I ran my hands through my hair in disbelief, my body trembling as Detective Mason set the evidence bag on a table. It gets worse, he said quietly. We found a fake email draft, written from what appears to be your account, reporting Emily missing as if you were planning something. My blood went cold. So she was preparing to frame me for harming my own wife, I said, voice shaking. She wanted to destroy my life. Mason nodded. And she wasn't working alone. That sentence froze everything inside me. What? Mason motioned toward his partner, who walked in holding a tablet showing a screenshot. An email, sent 2 days ago, from Karen, to a man named Michael Trent, a member of the HOA board, and someone I barely recognized except for seeing him complain about my grass length once. Mason turned the screen toward me. The email read, "He's too confident, too calm, too respected in the neighborhood. We need to push him, break him down. He won't see it coming. I want the board on my side. When it happens, my hands curled into fists." Karen wasn't acting alone. She had an accomplice. Someone on the board. Someone who hated me too. We questioned Michael, Mason said. He panicked. He cracked. What did he say? Mason exhaled. He admitted Karen has been planning something involving you for months. That she targeted you because she believed someone with military training was a threat to neighborhood safety. She claimed she was the only one fit to control you. I shook my head, disbelief clouding everything. A threat? I've lived here peacefully since day one. She twisted your background, Mason explained. Every time you did something normal, carry heavy items, fix something outside, exercise, she turned it into something threatening. She convinced Michael that you were dangerous. Then she talked him into helping plant evidence. My mind reeled. Michael planted the gun? Not exactly, Mason said. Karen planted the gun. But Michael helped her get access to your property. I felt a hollow pit grow in my stomach. He was the one who put the key under my porch, Mason confirmed. He admitted it. He said Karen told him it was a safety measure in case the community needed to act fast. I clenched my jaw until it hurt. Act fast? To frame me for murder? Or to kill my family? Mason looked away, the silence answering my question. Inside the hospital room, Emily lay unconscious, her heartbeat faint but steady, our daughter fighting for every breath. Rage, cold control, tactical coursed through me. Not the explosive kind, the military kind, the sniper kind, the kind that focuses so sharply it could cut through steel. Detective, I said quietly, you know what this means, right? Mason nodded. Karen didn't shoot Emily because of balloons. His voice lowered. She shot her because she wanted to destroy you. I closed my eyes, letting the truth sink like a weight into my chest. And she almost did. Mason hesitated. There's something else. Michael told us Karen kept a journal. A private one. He said she wrote down everything she planned. Where is it? I demanded. We don't know yet, Mason said. But it's somewhere. And if what Michael says is true, that journal could prove premeditation, obsession, everything. The door suddenly creaked open, and a nurse rushed in. Sir, she said breathlessly, we have to check your wife's monitors again. Her levels just dropped. I hurried to Emily's side. Her breathing was uneven, her face pale, her hand limp in mine. Emily, I whispered, I'm right here. The nurse checked her pulse, her eyes narrowing. We're doing everything we can, she said gently, but she needs stability and quickly. My throat tightened. She was slipping. Our baby was slipping. Karen had done everything she could to break my life apart piece by piece. She wanted me blamed. She wanted my wife gone. She wanted my child to die. She wanted to be the hero in a story where she was the villain. Not anymore. I turned to Mason, my voice low and absolute. Find that journal. Find every piece of evidence. Expose her. Destroy her lies. Do whatever it takes. Mason nodded. We will. No, I said, I will. He looked startled. What are you saying? I stared at Emily, my wife, my best friend, the mother of my unborn daughter, lying there fighting for her life because of a woman who twisted petty power into violence. The sniper inside me, the protector, the strategist, the man who survived battles most people couldn't even imagine, rose to the surface completely. I'm saying, I whispered, that if Karen wanted a war, I straightened, eyes burning with a focus I hadn't felt in years. She's about to get one. The next 48 hours were a blur of fear, adrenaline, and sleepless determination. I barely left Emily's bedside, my hand wrapped around hers, listening to the soft, fragile beeping of machines keeping her and our daughter alive. Every hour, nurses checked vitals, whispered updates, adjusted medications. Every hour, I prayed for movement, a breath, a flutter of eyelashes, anything that would tell me Emily was still fighting. And while I sat in that dimly lit room, Detective Mason and the police worked around the clock, searching Karen's storage unit, office, and car for the last piece of the puzzle, her journal. The journal that would prove premeditation. The journal that would expose her obsession and her lies. The journal that would destroy her life the way she tried to destroy mine. On the third morning, just as the sun cast thin golden stripes across Emily's blanket, Mason burst into the hospital room, breathless, holding something wrapped in an evidence bag. "We found it," he said. "The journal. Thick, leather-bound. The pages inside overflowing with Karen's handwritten thoughts, twisted, delusional, hateful. She had documented everything. Her anger toward Emily's friendliness, her jealousy of the attention our baby shower invited, her obsession with restoring order, her fear of my military past, her belief that she needed to neutralize threats before they became problems. She even wrote about the shooting, not as a panicked mistake, but as a necessary step. She wrote, "The wife won't be an issue for long. Once she's gone, the husband will lose all credibility. The board will finally listen to me." Rage shot through my bloodstream, but so did relief, because this was it. This was the evidence that would end her. Forever. Mason opened another bag. Inside was the real weapon, clean, polished, and missing the fingerprints she tried to plant with a cloth. "Ballistics match," Mason said. "It's the gun that shot Emily. Not the fake one she surrendered." My breath left my body. "What happens now?" "Now," Mason said, tightening his jaw, "we arrest her again, with charges she can't lie her way out of." Karen was already out on bail, smiling like nothing had happened, telling reporters she was framed, waving to HOA supporters who believed her lies. But when the police cars rolled up the second time, there was no smile. No waving. No confidence. They read her the charges. Attempted murder of an unborn child, evidence tampering, planting false evidence, conspiracy with a board member, and premeditation. Her face drained of color. She crumbled into the back of the squad car like someone whose mask had finally shattered. Michael, her accomplice, cracked instantly again, this time on camera, admitting he helped Karen because she manipulated him into believing she was protecting the community from a dangerous veteran. Reporters swarmed. Neighbors shouted. People cried. Some apologized to me for ever doubting what happened. Others were horrified they had once admired her. But none of that mattered, not yet. I just wanted Emily to live. That night, after the arrest, I sat again beside her bed, her soft breaths filling the silence. I held her hand, my forehead resting against her knuckles. "It's over," I whispered. "She can't hurt you anymore. She can't hurt our daughter. She can't hurt anyone." But Emily didn't respond. She couldn't. Not until she was ready. And then, just before dawn, the faintest movement brushed against my palm. Her fingers, moving. My eyes snapped open. "Emily?" Her eyelids fluttered. Her mouth twitched. A quiet, barely there sound escaped her lips. "James." My heart broke open in my chest. "I'm here," I whispered shakily, my face buried against her hand. "I'm right here." She blinked slowly, her voice fragile as glass. "The baby?" I swallowed hard, tears spilling. "She's fighting, just like you." Emily exhaled softly, relief washing over her pale face. A nurse rushed in, her expression lighting up. "She's conscious," she said, hurrying to check vitals. "She's stable. This is a very good sign." Good. The first real good sign in days. Over the next week, Emily grew stronger. Our daughter, born prematurely through emergency intervention, fought even harder in the NICU. Tiny, fragile, but alive. A fighter, just like her parents. And then came the day of the hearing. Not the full trial, just the preliminary hearing where evidence is shown and charges are confirmed. I sat in the courtroom beside Mason. Emily, still recovering, watched via live stream from her hospital bed, her voice weak but steady. Karen was escorted in wearing an orange jumpsuit, no makeup, no authority, no power. She looked small. The prosecutor laid out everything. The recordings, the fake gun, the planted evidence, the storage unit access, Michael's confession, and then the journal. Karen's face twisted as the pages were read aloud. Every paranoid thought, every plan, every delusion, every intention. The entire courtroom listened in stunned silence. And when the judge finally spoke, her voice was ice cold. "Mrs. Walker," she said, "this was not an accident or a moment of fear or a misunderstanding. This was a calculated act of violence driven by obsession and control. You will be held without bail." Karen screamed, cried, begged. But the world she tried to control slipped away forever as officers dragged her out. When the hearing ended, I walked out of the courthouse into the cool afternoon air, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. Emily was safe. Our daughter was safe. Karen was gone. And then one of the nurses called me. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice bright, "your wife and daughter are asking for you." I rushed to the hospital, my chest pounding with a different kind of adrenaline. When I walked into the room, Emily sat propped up, pale, but smiling, holding a tiny pink-hatted baby in her arms. "She's strong," Emily whispered, tears streaming, "just like her father." I kissed Emily's forehead. I touched my daughter's tiny hand. And for the first time since the nightmare began, I felt whole again. "What should we name her?" Emily asked softly. I smiled. "Hope." Because that's what brought us through the fire. Hope, strength, and love. Our story didn't end with the gunshot. It began with survival. If this story gripped your heart, made you feel something, or kept you on the edge from beginning to end, then don't leave without supporting the channel. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching from and what part shocked you the most. Your engagement helps this channel grow and keeps these real-life inspired stories coming. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another emotional, suspenseful episode. Your support means everything. Thank you for being here.